Hi guys, today we will be again driven by tests, but our task is much harder. Let's see what we need to do. We need to create a SQL user repository that implements this repository that we have here, but it needs to get the data from the real Postgres database. So we need to use this interface, but the data needs to come from real Postgres database. How we achieve that? Well, we use a library called test containers, and it's a basically Java library that make it easy to create, start, stop, configure, and manipulate Docker containers. So that's a prerequisite. You need to have Docker installed on your machine, and you need to know what the Docker is. I will not describe it and explain today. So with that being said, let's see what else do we need, because we need a few dependencies to talk with the database. So first we need test containers. And obviously, all of the code will be available for you guys in the GitHub repo. I will link it in the description, as always. We also need to have Postgres driver, and to write SQL queries, we'll use Spring Jdbc. And yes, this is Spring, but they published this Jdbc part as a separate library, so it has nothing to do with their framework. So here we have test containers dependency, Postgres, and Spring Jdbc. Right, so what else do we have? So as I said, we need to implement this interface. I have also prepared a model. This is a user with just 3 fields, ID, name, and the email. And here in the test resources, we have SQL table. And why do we need this double quote? Unfortunately, this is because for Postgres user is some kind of special word, or they have it in their table, so we need to escape that. But nothing fancy here. ID, which is big int, which corresponds to long in the Java, and it is a primary key, and to text, not null fields, name and email. And I have also prepared a test class, SQL user repository test, with the setup of test containers library, Docker, and so forth, because it would take too much time. So let's get through that. So what do we have here? Here we have just a Postgres version, which is the new one, 14. This line just declares Postgres container. It will not start it. But as you can see, we have ready to use Postgres container from the test containers library. All we need to do is to specify a version. And this is Jdbc template from the Spring library. We talk about that in a minute. And here we have before our method, and in the GUnit 5 it means that it will be called before all tests, not before each test, but once before all of them. We are starting a Docker container here, so let's verify that first. So if I go to the terminal and we'll say docker ps, I don't have any containers running right now, so let's write some dummy test, which will just wait a while, and we'll see that we'll verify that the Docker container is running. Right, so let's start. And yeah, one more thing, if you're doing this for the first time, it might take a while, because with this line, test containers will pull the official Postgres image from public Docker registry. So it can take, I don't know, 10, 20, even 30 seconds. So, but after that, it will be cached in your local file system, so it will be fast. I just have run it before that. Okay, so we have that. Let's call it one more time to verify to show them. Oh, here we have test containers. We have two containers. Test containers /Ryuk. I think it's some kind of master container which starts when we use this library, and it basically manages all of the containers started using that library. So we have Postgres, as we can see, some ports. They have opened this port, and it is mapped to the Postgres port, I guess. Yeah, and we don't have that because tests have finished, and we are stopping it there, but we are a little all over the place, so let's get back. We were here, so basically before our test we are starting Postgres container. Here we are creating Jdbc template that we'll be using to write SQL queries. So we need to create Jdbc template, we need a connection, Jdbc connection. To do that, we are taking Jdbc URL, username and password from Postgres container. It's random or hard coded. I don't remember. I don't remember, but let's check. Let's print it out of curiosity. Okay, get password, and yeah, let's run some tests again. Yeah, here we have it. So localhost, random port, let's see, 196. Yeah, the port is random. Test database, test user. Okay, so it's only port is random, rest is hard coded. And to create a Jdbc template, we actually need to pass it the data source. This is more or less a pool of connections, but we don't care about, we just need to use one connection in our tests. So we will be using single connection data source, and it needs to have a connection and this strange flag suppress close, and it basically means that we don't want it to close our connection. That's why true. What else? After each we have, and what we are doing here, we are truncating user table, because container will be running all the time. I mean, throughout all of our tests. So if we'll be creating new rows, we'll be inserting new rows to our database, updating it, and so forth. Tests will have state, and tests shouldn't have state. So that's why we are truncating this table after each test. And after all is called similarly to before all, after all of our tests are done, and we are stopping the Postgres container. So basically it is starting before all tests, then we are running our tests. After each test, till down is executed, so that we are clearing all of the state in our database, so we can start fresh. Each test can start without state from previous one, and after all of the tests are done, we are stopping the database. Yeah, and what else? I think it's I have also prepared int schema method, and it's basically it basically reads schema from this file, and it is executing it so that we have user table schema prepared. Right, and it is doing that before our test, similar to start method and Jdbc template initialization. I think it's all. I think we can start with the test-driven development, actually. So, what we need to do? We have a contract interface prepared for us. So let's implement it. It needs to be called SQL user repository, and it needs to implement user repository. That. And actually, let's write test first. Okay, so we have authID method, and what we expect, I would say that authID given existing user ID should return user, maybe something like that. Okay, and how we can test that? We need to create a user before, or even two users. So let's create a method create user like that. But I would say that we need at least two users to retest it, because we need to make sure that that this parameter is used with one user we don't really know. So I would say first user, new user, something like that, and the second user. And let's change its data. Right, so they are different, and here we go create user and create user again. Obviously it will not work, but we are after red phase from the test-driven development phases described in the first episode. Okay, yeah, I forget about we need to initialize our SQL user repository, actually. So let's create a method maybe here before each setup repository like that, and here we say repository of ID first user. No, it should be optional. First user, second user. Okay, let's run it. Okay, it failed as expected. So what do we need? we need to implement that. So we just need to say Jdbc template update. No magic here. It will just execute SQL statement like that. Values and parameters there. Here we need to say ID, name and email. It will ask a file, but let's run it and check that users created. Okay, they should be created. And let's implement our repository. Actually, we need to have Jdbc template, obviously. Jdbc template. Okay. And here we will say something like that. Result template query and select also simple SQL, no magic. Yeah. User table from user where ID is that. Here we need to give it a mapper. I will explain it in a minute. And here param. Okay, and this is just a function. First argument is result set, so result from the query, and n is just the let's see, the row number, I believe. Yeah, row number. Don't care about row number there, so we will only say user, get long, get string, and also get string. That's simple. No magic, like some frameworks like to do. We don't like magic, actually. We want to understand everything, so we will see. And yeah, and the result is a list, so if there is no user associated with that ID, we'll get empty list. So basically, if it's empty, optional empty, and else of like that, and it should work. Okay, it needs to have Jdbc template. So let's see. Yeah, it works. So we are calling of ID. With this user, we are getting first user, this ID, and second user. So it works. So I would also add a method to check what will happen when we don't have a user. So let's create another test, and let's say of ID given non-existing user ID should return empty. Let's say user, and let's create some user, email.com. Let's create a user, and so let's assert that repository of ID returns empty actual. Okay. Yeah, not that, because this user exists. but something different, like, I don't know, not 2. Okay, so it works. Let's check. Can we simplify something? Here I don't like that, but I don't know what we can do with that. Or maybe you can actually create a constant for it, like that. Maybe let's say of id query templates, and let's have it here. Yeah, this is better, I think. Of id query template, and that's it, I would say. Yeah, let's run all tests together to make sure that they work together, not only one of them. Yeah, they work. So here you have it, guys. We achieved our goal. We've implemented SQL user repository, and we are using real database. So if you enjoyed this type of content, like the video, subscribe to the channel, and I see you in the next one.